because I'm actually working from home, which means I actually am working. So if my phone rings or something like that, I'm gonna have to get off live stream and attend to business. But I thought I'd do this live stream real quick because today is officially open for business day. Colorado has been under lockdown since mid March, I believe, and the governor had extended the lockdown to the 26th of April. So things are opening back up, which I have mixed emotions about that. School is still out until the 15th of May. It's all remote learning, and then they're going to have a day, which I think is the 18th, that they're going to let students go and clean out their lockers. Um, but yeah, businesses are going to start opening. And like I said, I have mixed emotions. On the one hand, I look forward to seeing the hairdresser because I don't know if you could tell, your girl's a little woolly, a little wild, is a little bad. But on the same token, I don't think it's right that hairdressers need to be exposed to people's germs, viruses, sick, things like that. I think that it's incredibly selfish for us to put the burden on the healthcare system because once people are active again and they're mingling and mixing and everything else, you get to the point where people are spreading germs, and then all of a sudden you've got people in the ER with COVID symptoms, and the curve, instead of flattening, starts to rise again. But I don't think that there's much that we can do because people are making horrible decisions out there. And so I guess it's better to tell people, okay, let's have a limited opening rather than having a full-blown opening. So it's limited opening is what they're doing limited opening. And yeah, like I said, I look forward to seeing the hairdresser, but I can wait to go back to Ross. I can wait to go back to Ulta. I can wait to go back to a lot of different places as long as it keeps people healthy. But yeah, it would be different if people were actually obeying the quarantine. I think that would be better. Like, I know for me in my household, I've been to the grocery store a few times, but I don't hang out with people. Like, I go to the office to get work stuff done, and I'm in and out of there in about 5 minutes, maybe 30 if I have to. Uh, but yeah, I try to stay there as little as possible. I am not in places where people are gathering. I do go and check up on my mother. I do. I have to say that's the one person that I'm not socially distancing from. And of course, me and Stephanie are living in the house together, so I'm not socially distancing from her because what would be the point? But yeah, it is. I'm just concerned. I'm concerned because there's so many groups. Every day I get a new group of people that I learn about that I'm concerned about. So, it started with me being horrified about the fact that people who have loved ones that are dying can't have funerals. That I was like, oh my God. I can't believe that that is what's going on, and that's tragic. Because, I mean, if you lost somebody that you love and you'd like to celebrate their life and, get condolences from your family and support from your family, you can't get within 6 feet of each other. So, funeral homes aren't allowing people to have big funerals. They're making people wait like you're lining up at the grocery store. You can go to the funeral home to do a viewing, but it's one at a time and only so many people allowed in the building. And I mean, that's heartbreaking on its own. There's people whose family members are in the hospital for other things. There's people who have family members that are in the hospital because they have cancer, that are in the hospital because they have some advanced stage of some other disease, and you can't visit them because the hospital is limiting who can be in the hospital. So you have people that are in a lot of pain, that are undergoing one of the scariest moments of their life, and they're alone. The only people they have are the healthcare staff that are there, that are working overtime in order to keep the rest of us safe. Then I read an article very recently about people who are deaf and blind and how they rely on touch to have their entire world, and what happens with them in the event of something like a COVID. Even freaking dogs are sad. Like, poor baby. I don't know if you saw the thing, Big Papa, the dog, who was sad because he needs to socialize with the babies. He wants to hang out with the kids and he can't because you have to social distance. So, I mean, it's everybody, everybody. And then also, COVID itself, it changes. The manifestations are changing. I just saw today where I think the CDC just added some new symptoms onto the list of symptoms you would use to identify whether or not you may be a person that has contracted COVID. They have new symptoms now. If you haven't looked it up, you should, because yeah, You may have had COVID, or you may have had COVID symptoms and you didn't know it because they weren't identified previously. And now they're turning up more and more animals have COVID, which they have not established that humans can get COVID from animals, but how did the animals get the COVID? So, I mean, it's just, like I said, I have mixed emotions about things being open for business. And, oh, I'm sorry to hear you were in the ER. I hope you're okay. I know that people need to do what they're doing. I know we need trash takers to take our trash. I know that the post office is working overtime, all the delivery people, the cleaning staffs, everything. Everybody is working as hard as they can in order to be able to keep us safe. And I appreciate everything that they're doing. I appreciate the fact that, I appreciate the fact that I'm in the position I'm at, that I can stay home, because I know there are people who can't stay home. I read about people that have been working in meat processing factories dying from COVID because they can't stop. They can't stop. I read about grocery store workers dying from COVID because they can't stop. They're not allowed to stop. And then you see the selfish assholes who are out here in the streets talking about reopen for business. I want a haircut. I want to go to the movies. And it's just like, fuck you. Like, seriously, fuck you with a big metal bat. Because you take it as I'm being inconvenienced. I'm not making money. You know what's an inconvenience? Having to bury a loved one and you can't have a funeral. You know it's an inconvenience when you're a healthcare worker and you've got fucking bruises under your eyes because you've been wearing a mask all day. You know it's an inconvenience is for people who don't have the ability to go back to certain jobs because they are now eliminated. When restaurants had to close, a lot of them couldn't make the transition to takeout all the time. There's things like boba places, like where you really go in the ice cream shop. People aren't doing takeout at the ice cream shop. I'm not going to Marble Slab and getting takeout at the Marble Slab. So there's a lot of places that close that may never reopen. And it's sad and it hurts. It hurts a lot. And so those people, yeah, they want to go back to work. They'd love to go back to work, but it's just not an option. So if they got to stay home, you need to stay your ass at home. It's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I said, I have mixed emotions about it. On the one hand, I'd love to get back to enjoying people. I'd love to travel again, but it's been so hard. It's been so very hard. And there's a lot of industries that we don't think about that like just aren't working. Thank you. There's the restaurant industry, there's entertainment, like, and not just like Hollywood stars, but you know, people who are not as high profile. Like there's a lot of independent artists out here that aren't getting a chance to make their rent money because a lot of the concert venues are not reopening for quite a while. So if you've got somebody that makes their money doing gigs, they're not doing gigs. And then, of course, because our government is an asshole and they like to see people suffer and be in pain, if you're self employed, it's a lot harder for you to claim unemployment, especially if you're a gig worker. They even have it to where if you are an American citizen who pays American taxes, that if you are married to an immigrant, you cannot receive the COVID stimulus payment. What the fuck is that about? Like seriously, what the fuck is that about? So that's why I say like it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I mean, I'm fortunate. The people in my family seem to be healthy and we're lucky that we all still have our jobs. My mother more than anyone is working her ass off. My mother is a nurse. My mother is a nurse. She's been a healthcare worker my entire life. So my mother's working her ass off. My brother works for postal delivery, so he's working his ass off. I'm chilling at the house, able to talk to you guys. So, I'm lucky that I got a job. But I know a lot of people who don't have that luxury. I know a lot of people who got laid off within about a week or two of all the COVID stuff happening. I know a lot of people who, for instance, people who do ride share, kind of taxi service style work, that they're finding that they're not getting the fares that they used to because people don't want to be inside of a vehicle that multiple people have been in before. So for that reason, like it's just there's a lot of people hurting out there. There's a lot of people hurting out there. And I just really, I want us all to be back to work too. I want to see you get your rent check. I want to see you be able to feed your family. I want to do all the things. But I also don't want anybody to be sick. People who work in the military in America are still working the military. We had, oh gosh, it was the most shameful thing ever. So I think it's the USS Carter is what it is. I may be wrong, but it was I think it was a Navy carrier ship, and or was the Comfort, the USS Comfort, I believe is what it was called. The USS Comfort. It was a Navy carrier ship, and the commanding officer of the ship wrote a letter saying that like we need help because there's so many people on our ship who we believe have COVID and we don't have any way to prevent the spread of COVID on the ship, and it's going to endanger lives. And apparently when they sent the letter out, somehow somebody outside of the military got a hold of the letter, and when they got a hold of the letter, what they did is that they fired the chief officer for being too stupid or too naive to know that a letter like this was going to get out to the public. Now, he didn't send it to the public. He sent it internal. It got leaked. So that's really not his fault. But also, it's not like he said Donald Trump is a simp and I think that this is a terribly run whatever. No, he said, I'm asking for help here, guys. I'm trying to save people's life. And one person on that ship actually did die. The commanding officer did contract COVID himself. And so, yeah, like it wasn't an empty threat. It wasn't somebody being hyperbolic. It wasn't somebody making a big deal out of nothing. Hundreds of service members on that ship contracted COVID because that ship had literally thousands of people working it. So, out of those thousands of people, hundreds of them contracted COVID. And so it's one of those deals where at what point do we, instead of trying to protect our selfish interest, move past that and move into the space of being like, okay, let's maybe approach this with some common sense. I hope it's hundreds and thousands. It may not be. It may have been like 100 and then 1,000, something like that. I could have the numbers off on the US Comfort story. But yeah, I just the military is going to keep going. Even the support staff for the military, one of the people that I work with, he is a support staff and he is being locked down on a military post right now. They're trying to limit the amount of travel back and forth. And so if you weren't on base when they started the lockdown, you can't get on base. So certain needed personnel were told to come back to the post because they were going to get ready to lock it down. So yeah, the military's still working. They haven't stopped. I know that somebody asked if getting a COVID test would be a good idea. From what I understand, they're not giving COVID tests to anybody who either is not showing symptoms or somebody who maybe isn't in a place where they could expose other people. So it's kind of hard to get a COVID test. There's a lot of different tests going on right now. There's some that are like the officially recognized 100% accurate COVID test. And then there are other tests that people are using that test something different and they're not considered official. They're kind of, I wouldn't say off brand, but basically they use a different kind of procedure in order to detect COVID. And that's the kind that I know Joe Rogan is giving all of his guests, which he's been paying out of pocket for his tests. He's not stealing them from people. He pays for them out of pocket because they're private tests. They're not government tests. And they're super expensive. They're super expensive. It's just, what can you do? And then, of course, we could talk about the dumb people who don't know any better and are doing stupid things to try to prevent themselves from getting COVID and are getting sick and dying from the stupid things they're doing to get rid of COVID, prevent COVID, get over COVID without going to the hospital. I read a story about an African American family from the South. I think they were from Georgia, maybe. And one of the female members of the family, she contracted COVID and she was trying to use steam, like, putting your head over the pot and boiling water and, a lot of homemade remedies to try to cure herself from COVID. And she ended up dying from it. Out of that family, three people I think in that family have died from COVID. 9 tested positive for COVID, one asymptomatic. And they claim that they think that they got it from work, even though they had been having Sunday dinners with each other, which, I mean, use whatever logic you want to, but I mean, if you're gathering the family together, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But yeah, it's just, I am 40 years old. I think I've told you guys my age 1,000 times, but I'm just gonna put it back out here again. I'm 40 years old. And there are only a few events in my lifetime that really stand out to me as like these were game changing moments in my life and it changed my environment permanently. So, like 9/11 was a game changing moment. It's been almost 20 years since 9/11, but I mean, airport travel, all kinds of travel have never been the same since 9/11. The way that the world is kind of scared and pessimistic, definitely a lot of the optimism we had in the 90s died on 9/11. Another day that changed my world. I lived in Texas for many, many years before I moved to Colorado. And when Enron crashed, I remember that changing my world because I was in college when Enron crashed. And a lot of the students there had parents who worked for Enron, so they had to drop out of college. We had a lot of people who had internships lined up for Enron, who wanted to go work for Enron. And when Enron crashed, it was a series of large companies that end up crashing. I remember shortly after my daughter was born, the housing bubble burst. And I remember that because me and my ex-husband at the time were planning to buy a house. Enron, it's spelled Enron. You can look it up online, but Enron was an energy company that was basically selling fake energy futures because they didn't have good government oversight. And then when finally they were caught, everything just crashed. And it actually is something where the oil market has never really recovered from what happened with Enron. But yeah, the housing bubble. I remember when that burst. Me and my ex-husband were about to buy a house in East Texas. We had been thinking about it for a long time. He had the VA loan because he was in the military. It would have been something that our family would have been very happy about. Thank God we started arguing before that happened, because once we started arguing, we were like, okay, we're not buying no house because we might not even be together, which FY, we're not together. And then the housing market bust, and so many people who we were friends with, family members who had bought houses in the last 1 or 2 years, found themselves upside down on their home loans. They could not sell their house to anyone. And if they wanted to sell their house was sometimes worth half of what they paid for it. So you had people that were paying $2,000 a month house notes on a house that realistically you would probably pay $1,000 a month in the current climate. And so, yeah, it was tough. It was really tough. I remember my ex-husband's sister was working as a mortgage underwriter at the time, and her entire office closed. Like they quit, they went out of business. A lot of realtors around that time will tell you it's just never been the same. And now with all the COVID stuff that's been happening, I watch a lot of YouTube from a lot of different people, guys, a lot of different people. And there was somebody who I follow, Kev on Stage. I don't know. Some of you might know who Kev on Stage is, some of you might not. But he and his wife were getting ready to move into their dream home, one that was completely customized for them. And because he's self-employed, because he's a comedian, they had to get like some special kind of loan that was a little bit different than a traditional loan. And as they were getting ready to move in their house, they were about a week away from moving into their house. They were notified by their bank that not only was their loan not going to happen, but that kind of loan that they were approved for no longer exists in the market. That the basically no banks are servicing that style of loan anymore. So the banks now believe that we're getting ready to be in another housing crisis, so they're making preemptive moves to keep from having to go to that. But I mention all this stuff because I think of all the things that have changed my life, at least in the time that I've noticed it, because I really didn't start noticing a lot of this stuff until I was in like high school, college, all those things. This is probably one of the biggest periods in time that has affected my life. And I know for my daughter, it's going to be one of the biggest periods of time that has affected her life, because it's one of the times that it's not about like, oh, now I'm not going to do this, now I'm not going to do that. I mean, there's a little bit of it. I'm hoping that more people, they had to rent a house. They weren't able to get their dream home. They actually had to go ahead and rent a house, and then they're going to save up their money and hopefully buy a home in the future, because it all went to pot. Uh, For me, I think that a lot of people are going to maintain their 20-second hand washing. I hope you do. I hope that you don't decide that now that COVID is over, I don't have to wash my hands anymore. Like, get it together, sis. Um, a lot of people are going to wash their hands more. I think a lot more of us are going to make sure we have extra toilet paper on hand in the future. But what I see is going to be a bigger change than even that. And something that I'm kind of terrified of is the places that people won't go and the things that people won't do because of what they've seen happen when you chase your dream in an unstable environment. So there are a lot of people who maybe wanted to be vet techs, or people who wanted to pursue an entertainment career, or people who had a dream of going to culinary school. And people are going to look at what got considered an essential business, and it's going to change people's dreams. The kids that are graduating from high school right now, they're already contemplating changing their majors when they go to college next year, if they can go to college next year. There's a lot of people who aren't going to go to college next year away from home. There's a lot of people who are going to be looking at whether or not dorm fees are being refunded. And if they don't get refunded, there's a lot of people who are going to school in town and they're going to be staying in their childhood bedroom instead of trying to go off to college, because they're going to be thinking to themselves, I don't want to be caught out here again. So there was a fear that was placed in a lot of people's lives because of 9/11, and we don't talk about it enough, but a lot of the anxiety that people feel nowadays, especially people of a certain age group, I would say any young person between the age of, I would say, around 20 and 30, a lot of the anxiety that they suffer with is actually a byproduct or an after effect of 9/11, because it put us in this hyper aware, super kind of fearful, looking for terrorists, looking for the next bombing, looking for the next shooting. That's the environment that these kids grew up with. And because of that, it's changed them, and they suffer from anxiety problems, and they have depression, and a lot of it is situational depression because of the environment they're in, because they've been conditioned to always be on the lookout, always be on your guard, always anticipate that something horrible can happen. And the kids who are my daughter's age, who didn't grow up under 9/11, they're starting to get a little bit more freedom. Like, you can listen to the music now. The music feels a little bit happier, and people are doing fun dances on TikTok, and everything is nice. And those kids are now being dealt their anxiety pill. That's what this whole COVID thing has done. It has given them their anxiety pill. So the kid who was like, I have a dream of being a graphic artist, they're not going to do that. They're going to be like, what can I do that'll ensure that I'll always have a job? I'm only going to briefly say about the COVID challenge. Don't do it. That's all that needs to be said. I'm not going to give it any more attention. Don't do it. But yeah, I think about that a lot, about, what people are going to do, how things are going to happen, what's going to change with everything. Also, I'm just going to say this. This is the one K-pop thing I'm going to say, and I'm not going to mention anything else about K-pop. SM is fucking tacky. SM is fucking tacky. Uh I didn't think that it was a great idea for SM to do a stay-at-home concert that you had to pay for right now. This is not the environment for it. This is not the time for it. If you want to release an album, that's cool. I mean, I got $15 for a digital download. I might even have 25 to get it sent to me. But paying $30 for a concert to watch from our house, when a lot of people are wondering, which bill am I willing to pay because I only have a limited amount of money because I'm out of a job, that's really fucking tacky, SM. And then SM to be like, we're going to be convicting anybody who illegally streams this concert. Again, no one would have to do that if you didn't make people pay for a concert in the middle of COVID. Now, I didn't watch any of the illegal streams because I wasn't interested. And also, it was like 3 in the morning, so I was going to sleep. And paid V Lives, people have been doing it forever. BTS does paid V Lives because they did a concert streaming on V Live a couple years ago, I believe. So, I mean, it's something that's been done. But in this environment, in the COVID nation that we're currently in, to charge people $30 to see a concert when we just got through seeing Super M on an all-day free concert on the YouTubes? Unless you're saying it is $30 to stream this concert and all the proceeds are going to COVID relief, you are extremely tacky and extremely out of touch. That is literally the only justification. If you had said we're having this concert and all of the money is going to go to COVID relief, then people would be like, okay, I'm not going to bootleg it because I want to go ahead and donate the money and give it to charity. But that's not where that money is going. That money is going to SM. And it's not even that it's going to SM because SM is running out of money right now. This is actually SM getting ready to guinea pig a system that they're wanting to do from now on. Because what's going to happen is they're going to say, okay, how many people are willing to pay this $30? Cool. Well, then instead of us sending our groups around the world, we'll just start going ahead and having our concerts here at the house and having people around the world pay to watch it. And that'll be how we make our money from now. No need to send sets and personnel and costumes and everything else all around the world. We'll just stay here and broadcast our concerts and people will love it. It'll be fun. Money. We won't even have to sell DVDs. So we'll make all the money pure and simple because there'll be no physical thing to print out either. You know, this is the worst time for you to be out here trying to figure out a new revenue stream. But I wanted to make sure I talked about it because I think that shit is bogus and I'm not going to be watching any of them. I'm not going to be watching Super M. I'm not going to be watching NCT. I'm not going to be watching Wavy because I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give SM their money, their blood money in this time and space. Like, I really had thoughts about pre-ordering Baekhyun's new solo because I really like Baekhyun's City Lights. It's actually a really decent mini. But I'm also kind of like, fuck that. You can hang out and wait for this money because, yeah, I got shit to do. I still have my job and I'm very fortunate I still have my job, but this COVID situation has actually increased my expenses, oddly enough, because I'm eating at home a lot. And my daughter, normally, I don't have to feed her breakfast and I don't have to feed her lunch because they got money at school. Ooh, what's going on? Sorry about that, guys. I told you I'm at work. My phone's not ringing. I'll call him back. But anyway, I have to feed her breakfast and lunch, which I didn't have to before. So I'm paying more money for that. I'm also paying for extra lighting and heating during the day that I don't normally have to pay for because usually there's no one at the house for several hours a day. So yeah, I've got more expenses than I used to have. I really, really do. And because of that, I'm sorry. I don't have your money. I don't have your money, SM. I don't have your money. What are you going to do? I don't have your money because I got to spend more money to be at home. So sorry. I don't have it. I didn't even mention about car dealerships. I wanted to mention that, but in a very self-serving way. But you know what? I'm a human, so I'm allowed to talk about my faults. I'm allowed to talk about the selfish thoughts I have. So, as most of you know, I had to buy a car recently because I got in a car accident, my car was totaled, and because of that, I had to get a new car. So, it is what it is. Excuse me. Sorry. So, because I had to get a new vehicle, I had to go vehicle shopping. I found something I liked. I paid for it. I might have overpaid a little bit, but I paid for it and I'm currently driving it. I'm glad I got it because, even though they're telling us to stay at the house, I still have things I have to do in my car. Part of my job is that I do inspections and they're exterior inspections that I don't have to get out of my car to do. So I need my vehicle to be able to go around and do these exterior inspections. Well, car dealerships aren't open. They're about to return to limited openness, I think, but for the most part, they're not open. Ooh, I got a phone call coming through. I gotta go, guys. I'll talk to y'all later. But basically, cars are getting cheap. Save your money. I wish I had. Talk to you later. Bye.